Thank you for joining me this evening.
It's my pleasure.
You were a deputy at the Stanislaus County Correctional Facility. Is
Yes,
that
downtown at the Sheriff's Department.
okay? How long were you a deputy there?
6.5 years.
What was your experience while you were a deputy? Is that too heavy of a question
Yeah,
to
that's
start out with?
pretty broad.
Okay, so how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well.
How was your Christmas?
It was wonderful.
Good.
Missing my brother, but we make the best of it and just thank God for the family that's left. So.
Yeah,
really
your
good.
brother was also a deputy of the
Yes.
Stanislaus County Sheriff's Department.
Yes.
And how long was he a deputy?
About 9 years.
Oh.
9 or 9.5 years.
Now, was he a deputy before you became a deputy?
No, I was first, and then
Okay.
he came in after. I left with an injury. Well, didn't leave because of an injury. They forced me out because of an injury. So.
Forced you out?
Yeah, basically didn't give me an opportunity to come back, and they just gave me my time and
Said, see ya?
see ya, pretty much.
What happened with your brother?
Um,
I mean, that's kind of a broad
that's
question.
a broad statement. He was forced to resign for something he didn't do at the Sheriff's
Okay.
Department, and he was not fired, to clear that up for everybody. He was forced to resign. Then years later, it kept bothering him, the injustice that was brought to him and his family. When you're threatened about you will kick in the door on your 5 kids or 6 kids, that kind of stays in your mind, and it's scary, especially when somebody's leaning over, holding have their hand on the butt of the gun in an interrogation room when he first got to work. So
Now, that's how they forced
that's
him
how
to
they
resign?
forced him out. They forced him to sign. He felt that if he did not sign that they would have shot him, and made an excuse why they shot him. So he signed the paper. He forced to resign. Then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but time came on. He kept talking about the injustice that happened to him, and it got worse and worse and worse. And we really noticed a real big difference in change in him in 2009 in January, and he just started talking a lot about the end times, the injustice about here, and so it just kind of brought a little bit of concern to us and his family. So I'm just rambling on here, but there's a lot to talk about and to kind of put into a few minutes.
Well, what's the time frame between the time that he was forced to resign?
About 3 years.
Okay, so it wasn't like 5 or 10 years. It was
No.
just about 3 years. Okay.
No, he was trying to find somebody to take on his case, and to get his job back. He even went to
Okay.
Adam Christensen and asked and told him about the things that were going on and how he was accused unjustly, and how he was brought to justice when all the stuff was dropped because it was all false. He'd actually had a warrant out for his arrest and didn't know it.
Now, Adam Christensen is the
current sheriff.
sheriff. Was he the sheriff when your brother Craig was working there?
No,
Okay.
I do believe it was either Putoff or Weidman. I'm not sure,
Okay.
but whoever was the sheriff in 2006. But it just got a little worse and worse. And so my mom, my sister-in-law, and myself, we basically we got together and talked about having him arrested because we didn't want him to get shot like the guy brandishing a sword, or the lady hitting herself in the head with a hatchet. So we were trying to get him off the street, because he was just talking. It wasn't violent. He was just talking in different. We couldn't really understand what he was saying, and it kind of put a scare in us. So he was taken to the. First, I called. The sheriff's department came out to his home, and he agreed to go to the behavioral center. 6 days later, they kicked him out. But during that time of his stay, they gave him a shot. I don't know what type of medicine it was, but it literally. He explained that it literally just made him go crazy and strong, and got paranoid, and he ripped the bed out of the floor.
And that was at the behavioral
That was
center?
at the behavioral center.
Okay, so let me see if I can get the timeline straight here. He worked for the Sheriff's Department for about 9 years.
About 9 years.
And then they forced him to resign because of something. I'm not sure what.
They were saying he was smuggling drugs into the jail, and it wasn't true.
Okay, so they forced him to resign.
Correct.
And then approximately 3 years later, he was checked into the Behavioral Health Center.
Right.
Because in those 3 years, he was kind of having a nervous breakdown? Is that?
I think so. I don't know if it was a nervous breakdown. I just think that he was just totally focused on the injustice and
I see.
and how inmates were being mistreated and all. It's a long story.
So he was checked into the behavioral health center, and then they gave him some medication that he had a bad reaction to.
He had a bad reaction to.
Okay.
And then I guess they had another shot that kind of counteracted it. But two police officers had to come out when he had the reaction.
Okay.
And he was tasered and beanbagged.
Now this is at the
This is at the behavioral center.
Okay.
And so after that, 2 days later or so, they let him go, which my mom and Rachel, we all called and said, don't let him go.
Mm-hmm.
He's not ready. There's something wrong. But he seemed to be okay the first few days, and they just started progressing back to the obsessive talking and metaphorical speaking. And anyway, so then we had Rachel. Rachel decided to go get a restraining order, and they picked him up on a restraining order, which was why they brought him to jail. We just wanted to get him off the streets so he could be safe. So and our whole thing was to get the judge to make him go get help.
So your impetus was not to have him arrested and incarcerated, but to have him get some sort of help for his breakdown.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so as that progressed, it worked. It got him. The Modesto Police Department did a great job getting him into the jail. Officer Tony Trout did a wonderful job getting Craig not to get agitated or anything like that. He talked to him like a human being and put him in the back of the car, no problem, and drove to the jail and where he was booked on his birthday. And 4 or 5 days later, we get a call that Craig was dead. And I had been talking during the week, calling at least twice that week to see how he was doing. Oh, he's loud, but he's okay. It was just a shock. We didn't know what to do.
He died while he was in
incarcerated.
Custody.
Yes. And here he is. He's incarcerated for a nonviolent crime. Basically, he didn't do anything. He was just a violation of restraining order, because he called his wife. So it was nothing violent. He wasn't ever in trouble with the law. But here is we're trying to get him help, and here it is 5 days after he's arrested, he's dead.
Well, I want to have you back to talk more about this particular story. But before our next guest comes on, I want to ask how your family, you and your mom and his widow and his children, because I think he had six children.
6 girls.
Yeah. How is your family coping with this trauma? It's not just a death, it's trauma.
Well, we believe that God is the center of our life, and we depend on him for everything. We depend on each other. And it keeps us close. And the girls their music careers getting ready to really go off the charts here, I believe. But, it helped them get through the grieving process. They're still grieving like all of us. I mean, it's hard. I don't think we'll ever get over it, because there's no justice, there's no truth. We haven't got that yet. But the belief in God has got us through it. The girls, matter of fact, they'll be heading to New York with my mom, and they're going to be interviewing, and these big things are going to happen. I just know it. And it's not going to be just that, but there's also an interview online on Facebook. Tim O'Shea had an interview with the girls about their dad. So this is going to be something that's going to be big, hopefully, because we want the truth out. It's not, it's amazing. I get teary-eyed just thinking about it. But every time I want to call his number, it's like I can't talk to him. So, but we're dealing with it. I mean, it's a day-by-day thing, and we do a lot of crying, but a lot of praying too. So it kind of counteracts all that. So we're just moving one day at a time.
I've heard people say that at least something positive is coming out of this. And I'm very happy for his daughters. And they sound terrific, by the way. I'm hoping to have them here on the show in a few weeks. But that doesn't take the hurt away and the loss at all.
No.
And I would very much like to have you come back on the show
and
talk to us about the progress, if any, is being made as far as restitution is concerned, concerning your brother's wrongful death.
Well, maybe you can have my mom on here too.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you very much,
You're welcome.
Mickey.
Thanks for having me.